Hello, welcome to the live stream. I'm sorry there wasn't a Vlogbrothers video today. The number of things kind of like coalesced to make a Vlogbrothers video not happen, which is usually what happens. Like, I mean, at this point, I think this is my second vacation week of my 3 vacation weeks that I get per year without a punishment. And, like one of them was planned. This one was not planned, but like we got back late last night and I had to go to the doctor today. And it was sort of stressful. Like I'm a person who does not experience like 0 levels of stress while going to the doctor. And then also I didn't have a video script and I tried to write one and it wasn't very good because I was like trying to write in a hurry about what it means to be the citizen of a nation, which is like not really a topic that one can handle. I'm probably just stating the obvious here, in a dashed off script that hasn't been very carefully considered. So I was like, I can make some jokes about, I'm drawing circles, by the way, if you can see the top of my increasingly gray hair, that's because here, I wonder if you can see this. Maybe we'll just show you that for a minute. This is one of my circle drawings. This is the one that I'm doing right now. It's for a donor to the Project for Awesome. We earned about maybe, I don't know, $3 an hour for Partners in Health for this drawing. It's a laborious process, but one that I really enjoy. I enjoyed it a little more when the tendon that goes to my pointer finger worked, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. So anyway, I was going to write this video about nationalism and sports and the ways that like maybe sometimes at least sports can be a healthy expression of nationalism or a healthy way to understand the relationships among nation states. But then I was just like, you know what, man, that's a big topic, John, that you've bitten off and you think you're going to write this at like 10:45 on a Monday night? Really? And then I was like, I think I just want to draw circles. Nostalgic for the times in my life when I could just draw circles for hours and hours. So I'm back at it. What you see here is about 11,000 circles, and I'm trying to do around 14 to 17,000 circles per circle drawing. I'm starting to, so they're not finished when I fill the entire page with circles because they're over finished then. Let me show you a finished one. Like this one is finished. It doesn't have too many circles, but it also doesn't have too few, and that's the key. By the way, if you like, there's a link in the doobly-doo to support Partners in Health, our project with Partners in Health Sierra Leone, that I'll give you some updates about a little later in the show, and I do want to answer your questions. And you can also super chat, I think. I'm not positive. I tried to make it work, though, and if you super chat, I'll give the money to Partners in Health. But honestly, donating directly at pih.org/HankandJohn is the more efficient way because Google does take a percentage of the super chat money. But I'm not going to turn it down either. I know that some people just have a great love of super chats, and I support this love. It's not the least efficient way to help creators. The least efficient way to help creators is TikTok's monetization strategy. So yeah. But yeah, so there's just no Vlogbrothers video today, and I do feel really bad about it. I don't like to not make Vlogbrothers videos, but I also want to be realistic about what my body can handle, and what my brain can handle right now. It's been both a really good month and a really difficult one, to be honest with you. It's been a really good month in the sense that like this book that I worked really hard on has been received better, probably better than any book I've ever written. And it seems to have done the work that I hoped it would do in the world, or at least is off to a good start on that front. Like, I really think the success of a book is not judged in its first month, but in its first like 10 years. Like, is the book still in print is a much better gauge for me after 10 years than whatever can happen in the first month. But that said, what's happened in the first month has been incredible, and it's certainly been amazing to have the people respond to the book so generously, and it's meant the world to me. And I feel like I don't know, I feel I was really scared to write something so different. I was scared that people were going to say that I was sham, or that I should have stuck to what I know, or that I was an idiot, or that I was an idealist, which is perhaps the worst insult of all. And a few people have said I was an idealist, but mostly it's been very, very nice. So, yeah, it's been really lovely. And that part's been really good. But at the same time, the nature of writing and publishing a book is that it took over my whole life for the last 6 months, which also meant that when I returned back to life, there was a lot that I'd missed out on and a lot of work that needed me. And so that's been the challenging part of the last month. But it's a lot easier to do that work having had a positive reaction to the Anthropocene reviewed book than it would be if I'd had a negative reaction. So today I'm working with two different color or a mixed reaction or anything other than like what's happened instead, which is that it's by far my best reviewed book on Goodreads. The irony of which is not lost on me. Maybe in the last half of the show, I will review some of the 5-star reviews of my book of 5-star reviews. I've been thinking about doing that for a Vlog Brothers video, but then I was like, is it both like too meta and too self-absorbed? Like, does anyone else actually care that the Anthropocene reviewed is by far my best reviewed book, or is it only me who cares? Probably it's only me who cares, you know? Like, that's like a me thing, and it's a nice thing for me, but it's not something that I need to like make an other people thing necessarily. But maybe I'll do it anyway because it's a live show and the rules are different. We can do whatever we like. I see that nobody super chatted, so maybe it's not possible. Yeah, somebody wants me to do it for the podcast, which there's absolutely no way I'll do. Yeah, so, all right. Do you have, okay, I want to answer some questions, but there are so many things. Do you have a vision of the finished drawings, or do you just draw circles and see what happens? What writing utensil do you use for writing books? For writing in books? Oh, I am very disorganized. I'll talk about that though. Super chat isn't possible. Well, guys, you know what? I did my level best to make super chat possible, and I don't have the expertise. But if you can donate to Partners in Health just directly, it's pih.org/Hank and John. There's really cool stuff happening at PIH right now, really encouraging stuff. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Byler Berry, who has been on several live streams and is a Sierra Leonean doctor, he has an incredible personal life story. He really wanted to become a physician. He grew up extremely poor in Sierra Leone. He sold, popcorn and other stuff on the street to passing buses, to like the buses full of people when he was a little kid. And he was able to go to school. And as a result of being able to go to school, he graduated from high school, and he was about to start medical school, or had started medical school when the Civil War broke out. And he eventually, like a lot of people, had to escape Sierra Leone due to the extreme violence of the Civil War. He lived for a time in a refugee camp, but he did eventually finish medical school, did eventually become a licensed physician, and has chosen to, while continuing his education, he's getting a PhD at Harvard University right now. He is also, I think it's at Harvard. He is also he's also taken on the huge task of improving healthcare in the healthcare system in Sierra Leone, starting with the Well Body Clinic, which he founded with help from some other folks, which has quickly become the best clinic to receive primary care, I think it's safe to say, in the country, and one of the best in the region. And using this Well Body Clinic as a model. So, like, for context, 1 in 20 women in Sierra Leone can expect to die in pregnancy or childbirth, and until last year, that number was 1 in 17. So progress is being made, but not fast enough yet. So maternal mortality is infuriatingly and unacceptably common in Sierra Leone because of the weakness of the healthcare system, because so many women who need emergency C-sections are unable to get them in a timely fashion. So we lose a lot of moms and kids to lack of access to good maternal and prenatal care. And Well Body Clinic, which Dr. Berry founded, has not had a single maternal death in more than 4 years. They have really good, really innovative strategies for helping moms, even living in extreme poverty, to find ways to deliver safely. And him being at the helm of PIH Sierra Leone, I'm a huge fan of the person he replaced, who was John Lasher, and who did an amazing job. But Dr. Berry being at the helm of Partners in Health Sierra Leone is really good news for the people of Sierra Leone. Great news for us as supporters of PIH. Great news for the Ministry of Health, which has a great relationship with him, and just all around great news. And you know, we are working hard on raising the $25 million that PIH needs to raise to support the Maternal Center of Excellence and the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit at Koidu Government Hospital over the next 5 years, the building and maintenance of the next 5 years. But I want to be more ambitious than that, and I want to be helping PIH and the government also improve the primary care system. Because right now there's Well Body Clinic, which is amazing, and you get great care. And there are lots of other primary healthcare clinics that could be just like Well Body, but instead they have essentially no medicine. They have very little staff. What staff they do have is volunteers. Many of them don't have electricity or running water inside the clinics, which, of course, limits your ability to perform safe. I mean, among millions of other things, they don't have labs either, so it's hard to diagnose illnesses. But even if you can diagnose them, you can't write prescriptions because there's no pharmacy. So, and there's no climate control for a pharmacy even. So, so these are big problems with primary healthcare centers right now, and they're solvable. And all that is standing between those primary healthcare systems and being as good as Well Body is having the kind of support staff, stuff, and systems that Well Body has. And so that's part of what Dr. Berry is aiming to do. And I think it's really important. And I think if we can support that work alongside supporting the work of the Maternal Center of Excellence, that would be amazing. It's not going to be easy, of course, because we still have money to raise for the MCOE. I just think we need to be ambitious because the size of the problem demands a big, long-term, open-ended solution. So, yeah. I was going to answer a couple questions, but anyway, if you can donate, if you can become a monthly donor to that project, it's pih.org/Hank and John. I'm going to answer a couple of those questions, and then I'll move on and answer some more. Oh, I'm not showing you the circle drawing, which is the whole point of this. I'm just drawing circles, but they're not. I mean, I'm drawing failed attempts at circles. So somebody asked if there's a plan. There's not a plan. I draw with two different kinds of pens. One is very thin and the other is slightly less thin. As far as the patterns that emerge, they surprise me as well as they surprise you. I don't have a set intention of them. I like to draw spirals, like I always have. I'm interested in spirals. I think what I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to close this up, and then this one might be over. It's possible that this is going to be, if I close this in, that this will be the end of the whole painting. Although maybe I should go down here a little bit too. I don't know. I'll figure that out as I go. There's no reason to be in a hurry or to judge or to prejudge the drawing. I do this to calm myself down. I've been doing it for a long time, and it makes me happy. I also do it because I'm interested in the fact that it's impossible to draw a circle. You can only draw, figures that resemble to a greater or lesser degree a circle, but because of the human hand, it's impossible to draw a circle. And like the other thing that I almost made a video about today, in addition to almost making a video about the complex relationship between nationalism and sports, I almost made a video that was about how for so long of my life I lost track of the fact that I am a biological process, and that for instance, when I'm like pecking at my phone with my finger, it's not like I am a chicken hunting for a worm. I essentially am a chicken hunting for a worm, right? Like I am using these biological structures inside my brain to accomplish a goal that my brain has, which is to like get periodic random rewards, or like somewhat randomized rewards, in precisely the same way that birds get periodically randomized rewards by hunting through dirt for worms. And I think like for a lot of my life, I focused so much on mechanizing as much of my experience and myself as possible, because I found the biological reality of myself to be deeply upsetting and like really gross, partly because of mental illness stuff and partly because it is objectively gross to have a consciousness contained inside of a sweating sack of meat. But now I'm starting to understand, especially with the mechanization of so much human experience, the virtualization of so much human experience, the de-biologification of human experience. I'm starting to think differently about it and starting to think that there's maybe a lot of value for me in thinking of myself as fundamentally biological, as primarily an organism, and that attempts to like de-organism myself are like maybe not as good for me as I once thought they were. But then I was like, that's also not a very good video because it's also pretty hyper specific. And I just like covered the entire point of the video for you in 45 seconds. And so like making it 4 minutes long would have felt, I don't know, kind of like punishing and maybe preachy. And I'm like, these days, especially trying to be hyper aware of not being the wise old fish that fully understands the strange water in which we're swimming, because I have no freaking idea what is going on in the world. And I don't even have any freaking idea what is going on inside of my particular self. What the hell is this? Why am I drawing circles? Why am I doing it live on YouTube? What the flippin' heck? So I think that's enough. So this is what happens when I try to draw a spiral, but you can see it doesn't look like a spiral. It looks like a circle, which is precisely what I don't want it to look like. It actually doesn't look like a circle. It looks like a failed circle. So that's the deal. Oh man, I really miss super chats. I don't know how to turn them on. Does it matter if I didn't use the Hank and John link to donate? No, you can use any link to donate. If you want to send the money to our project in Sierra Leone, though, you do kind of have to say Sierra Leone, but our project supports all their work in Sierra Leone. So, all right. Okay. All right. How do you avoid carpal tunnel? No, not very effectively, as it happens. There's so many questions. Using a brush pen could help. No, I don't. I don't want it to go fast or be beautiful. I just want it to go my way. Do you feel that The Anthropocene Reviewed is actually your best book, or has it just been the most well received? That's an interesting question. What team are you cheering for in the Euros? Another great question. Okay. Do I think that The Anthropocene Reviewed is my best book? I don't know. I mean, to be honest, like they are each responding. Here's the thing about writing a book for me is that like a book is inevitably responding to it the moment in which it is being written. And then like it, in very rare cases, like the book becomes more relevant because the moment in which it was written um, it turns out to be a moment that was like bigger, you know, bigger and more interesting and more important. Like to use a really to use the example of arguably the greatest American novel of the last, well, maybe arguably the greatest American novel, period. One of the greatest American novels. I don't really like this ranking of great American novels. It feels very like debating how many angels you can fit on the head of a pin. Like whenever people are debating which novel is the greatest American novel, I always want to say, you do realize we can read more than one, right? Like there's no rules here. But Huck Finn is certainly one of the most important novels in American history, one of the ones that's hung around for a while. It's been in print not just for 10 years, but for like 155. And it's you know, it's good. It's a flawed novel, like all novels are, but still a really good one. And you know, I wrote a lot about Mark Twain when I was younger, and I was really obsessed with Mark Twain, especially when I was in college. And you know, Mark Twain certainly didn't think that Huck Finn was his greatest book, and I also think that like in his lifetime, Huck Finn was important, but maybe not considered the most like interesting or important work that he did to a lot of people. And you know, like his travel logs and his nonfiction were seen as really good, were seen as really important. His speeches were seen as like the best in the world and all this stuff. And that's not to say that like Huck Finn wasn't recognized as being a major work or anything. Just that like it wasn't as obvious as it is to us now that Huck Finn was Twain's best book. And Twain certainly didn't think it was his best book. And so if Mark Twain isn't going to be a good analyzer of his own work, I rather doubt my ability to be a good analyzer of my own work. But because I think the thing is that like books are written in a certain context and then they're read in a different context. And the hope is that the book can continue to provide value to readers even after context has changed. But like sometimes it doesn't. And that's not necessarily the fault of the book. Like, or maybe it's the fault of the book. Maybe it's the fault of the book for failing to see, you know, the ways that the world would change or whatever. But like, I don't know. I don't think it really is. So that's all a long roundabout way of me saying that like I really don't think that authors are the ones who decide the quality of their work anyway. It's a reader driven decision, and I feel a lot more qualified to comment on Mark Twain's best book or even you know, like a friend of mine's best book than I do to comment on my own best book. I think that I think that the Anthropocene Reviewed is the book that's responding to right now, and so it's the one that people are connecting to deeply right now, and I'm really, really grateful that they feel like it articulated something about this most difficult time that we are sharing, and I hope that it did. That was certainly my ambition with the book, was to try to make a time capsule, I guess, of what this you know, what this absolute strangeness was like. And in saying that, it may sound like I think this absolute strangeness is over, which I don't. I mean, I think that I am hopeful that the pandemic will be much better 6 months from now than it is now. But I think that, you know, COVID is a huge shared threat for as long as COVID is running rampant in communities, and it will run rampant in communities as long as there is insufficient vaccination. Now, in the US, most people who aren't vaccinated are not vaccinated by choice, But in most of the world, most people who aren't vaccinated because they don't have access. So I both hold out hope that more people will make the choice to get vaccinated, but I think it is perhaps even more important to make sure that everybody who currently wishes to get vaccinated but can't, which is not almost everybody, but at least a lot of the people who would like to get vaccinated currently can't. Very low vaccination rates in Sierra Leone, for instance. And so I'm hopeful that when that changes, or as that changes, COVID will become less of a threat and something that we are more able to situate in our minds as a primarily, if not exclusively, past tense experience. We will at some point think of the COVID years as part of history and not part of the present. I don't know when that will be, but I wrote the book with the hope that it could be a kind of time capsule for myself, for my kids, for other people I care about, for Nerdfighteria, a sort of time capsule of what this time was like, or at least what it was like for one person. And so I think, like I said earlier, the measure of the book is not like, did it stay on the bestseller list for 6 weeks, although I'm certainly delighted and surprised that it has. The measure of the book will be like, how well did it speak to whatever this moment was in a way that people of the future will be able to, will be interested in it. And like that, I think is, that almost never happens. Like books are almost never important outside of their historical moment. And that's okay. Like that's not something I lose sleep about. But yeah, so I think that that's unlikely, but it would be cool if it happened. So yeah. But I had a lot of fun writing it. I don't think it's my best book because, it doesn't have a story. Like it's, there's a lot of things that it does, and I hope it does those things well, but I like novels. I like stories. I think like what novels can do is particular and interesting and important. And I want to keep, if I can, I want to write more fiction at some point. But for a variety of reasons, a lot of them extremely personal, I just felt like there was absolutely no way that I was going to write fiction in this period of my life. And so I think I made the right call for myself in this time. Do you watch BoJack Horseman? Yeah, but I think I maybe need less of a reminder than a lot of people do of like what parts about being famous suck. So I think I might relate to BoJack Horseman a little too much to fully enjoy the show. Yeah. Okay. Who am I supporting? Thoughts on the new Bo Burnham scandal? Is there a scandal? I don't know about the scandal. I don't know that I need to know about every scandal. But I thought Inside was really good and really beautiful, and I liked it a lot. It broke my heart and made me feel a lot for young people. Like, obviously, getting famous when you're a teenager is extremely desirable, and I understand why teenagers desire it, and I understand why they look up to success. Well, I understand what's desirable about fame, I think, but the reality of celebrity is so different from the portrayal of celebrity, and I think that that's something that Burnham has thought a lot about in his work, and I think it's an important issue, and it's going to be a lot more important as there's a bigger and bigger and bigger group of people, tens of thousands of people within 10 or 15 years who experienced a measure of celebrity in their teen years and are now trying to figure out how to navigate that in adulthood. And I worry that it will not be an easy thing for them to navigate. I mean, frankly, it has not been an especially easy thing for me to navigate. And I'm like 43 years old and have a ton of stability in my life. And like, importantly, also have had a ton of stability in my life from pretty much the very moment I became famous. And so that made both the journey up the mountain and perhaps more importantly, the journey on the other side of the mountain a lot easier. And I know that for a lot of people, you know, so much of their identity, their friend groups, their relationships are all wound up in, you know, being content creators, being celebrities. And, you know, I think that's tougher. That's tougher than it would seem. A lot tougher, I think, than it would seem. And maybe we'll get better at talking about that. Like there's this, one of the weird things, this is another thing that I will not make a video about because I don't want to deal with the response to it, I guess. But like one of the weird things about like it's hard. It's really hard to talk about, and this is something that I like about. This is something I like about Inside a lot. I liked about Burnham's previous special as well. It's really hard to talk about celebrity and performativeness and entertaining without sounding like wildly out of touch and ungrateful for getting to have, you know, all kinds of wonderful things that almost everyone would want. And so it's really hard to talk about like, oh, woe is me, this part of being famous is so hard or whatever, because like these are not real problems. Like they are real problems because they're your problems, but like they aren't real problems compared to like the problems that like real people are having. That said, like I've had a lot of unpleasant things. I mean, certainly not all of the unpleasant things happened to me in my life, but I've had a lot of you know, pretty unpleasant things happen to me. I've had my you know, I've been sick where my life was in danger several times, and I've you know, I've you know, I've like I said, I haven't survived everything that a person can survive, and there's certainly a lot of bad things that haven't happened to me. But I've had a number of bad things happen to me, and honestly, nothing was as weird or as scary or as destabilizing as the famous parts of being famous. It was really, really hard to manage and deal with. And, you know, I wasn't a 16-year-old, I was a grown-up. So I do have a measure of sympathy for these young people who are thrown for a loop by this very difficult experience. So anyway, I really liked the special. I thought it was beautifully done. I thought, yeah, thought he found a way to be honest about it without seeming like self congratulatory or out of touch with the realities of human suffering. So yeah, I liked it a lot. Are you going to delete this live stream? No, I'll probably just make it unlisted. But now that I've talked about that, I might make it private. I don't know. I don't. I totally get why like people, and I feel safe talking about it here because you know this is 99.9% people who, whether I talk about it or not, are conscious of the fact that it happened to me because, you know, you're in our community and you pay attention and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's a very hard thing to talk about publicly, and I don't know how to talk about it publicly well, because it's like I said. I mean, you know, how can someone who has benefited so much from the internet ever complain about the internet? And or benefited so much from this celebrity industrial complex ever complain about the celebrity industrial complex. But the last thing that I'll say about it, unless it comes up in another question, is that there's two reasons why we kind of like agree as a collective. So what I'm going to do, just to lay it out here, I'm going to go here. I'm going to do that. Okay. But I'm going to do that in like 2 lines of the darker one and then 2 lines of the lighter one. And then I'm going to close this out, or mostly out, and then it's done. That one's done. That's what I've decided. There's 2 reasons we can't talk about it. And one is the very obvious reason that, these are beyond first world problems. These are incredibly fortunate problems. That's a little bit of a lie, though, because like they really suck. And like I said, I've had big problems, and there are problems of being famous that really, really suck and that are really destabilizing and suck. The other reason, though, and the like messed up corporate capitalist reason, is that we can't talk about it because the whole like ecosystem of the whole like capitalist ecosystem of the creator economy is contingent upon the idea that this job of being like a professional famous person is the best job in the history of the world. And if people start to say like, actually, it's not that good of a job, the market can collapse. And so I think like there are structures that get built in to making it undesirable to talk frankly about that stuff, because if everybody talked frankly about it, the market might collapse a little bit, or at least shrink a little bit, which would result in, less money and resources and time going into this independent creator economy. So so I think that's the other thing. Anyway, the other question was, who am I supporting in the Euros? I am a Danish citizen. This is what I was going to make my video about. I became a Danish citizen 13 days ago. It just sort of rolled over me. It was sort of more of an emotional experience than a legal one. And so I'm supporting Denmark. So yeah. Any opinions on Bo Burnham's special insight? I just talked about it for 20 minutes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you came late. I feel bad. I liked it. I thought it was very good. Can somebody else summarize my opinion on Bo Burnham's insight for me? Yeah. So it's again, I'm not like a citizen of Denmark in the sense that, like I could go to Denmark or that I have a passport or anything like that. But I have had an emotional, I've had an emotional nationalistic identity wash over me over the last 13 days. And then I expect it to sort of dissipate by early tomorrow afternoon. Yeah. So, but we'll see. Who knows? I don't know how long I'll be Danish for. I'm excited to find out. I have really enjoyed watching Denmark at this year's Euros, except obviously for the first game, which was the most horrifying thing that I've ever seen on a football field. I guess it's tied for the most horrifying thing that I've ever seen on a football field, because I also saw Fabrice Muamba, the great Bolton player, have a heart attack on the pitch during an FA Cup game, which was also terrifying. And in Muamba's case, his heart stopped for, I think, his heart was not beating on its own regularly for over an hour. And he lived and is still living, thank goodness. He did have to retire, but I guess it's not yet clear whether Christian Eriksen will have to retire. But the response of the Danish team to this tragedy, the way they play together, it's just been beautiful to watch. It's an incredible Cinderella story, one of the best Cinderella stories in sports. I mean, I know that they're like the 10th ranked team in the world, but it's still they've won a bunch of games that nobody, I think, expected them to win. Certainly that I did not expect them to win. And so, yeah, I'm rooting for Denmark. That said, if England win tomorrow, I will be very happy. A lot of my favorite players play for England, and I, of course, would be happy for England. I'm happy for Italy because of my friend Enrico, who some of you will know. My friend Enrico is I actually have a big friend. One of my closest friends is from England, and so I don't even know who I will root for in the final, because I need both Craig and Enrico to continue liking to hang out with me in order for me to have a happy life. So I don't know what I'm going to do on that front. All right. What did I say I was going to do during the second half of the show? Answer questions. What's going on tonight? What is this all about? Why are we here? What is the meaning of life? I can't seem to remember any of it. I think I said that I was going to talk about, well, geez, I really don't remember. But we'll figure out something. Maybe I'll just keep answering your questions. This is going to be nearly the last part of this little artwork here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two more lines of this that will kind of like track along this line. And then I sign the back of it. So I don't want to ruin it with my hideous signature. So I'm just going to do two more lines like this with this littler pen. It's a little finer. And you can see that none of these circles are circles, and that's the charm of this, is watching each circle fail in its own particular way. It's real good. So I'm going to do this one, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way back, like I'm going to snake my way back, like watch this. I'm going to go there, then I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there, and go there, 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 there. And the idea of doing that is that it becomes less obvious that I had made this decision. Hopefully for the viewer, it looks more like organic and spontaneous than it actually is. And then I'll try to do some good circles, since I just did a bunch of bad ones and I feel guilty, and I feel like the person who gets this is going to be like, oh my God, he didn't put everything into those circles, and I can tell. And then there's going to be one last row here with the darker pen, with the thicker tip, where I go like that, 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 hoobity, hoobity, and we're going to be done. So that'll be good. And then we'll find out what I'm doing for the second half of the show, because I also don't know. Okay. Maybe I'll just close it off a little bit there so that it looks a little, looks a little less, even less intentional. Okay. So this is the artwork. I may cut off this part because it looks weird, but I don't want to draw any over there because I like the shape of this thing. So that's what it is. There you can see that it is made of circles, or failed circles. And that one is done. I will sign the back now. Which way is the top? That way is the top. So I will sign over here. What's today's date? It's the 6th. Great. Okay. So just 10 more of those, and I'll be done with the circle drawings for the Project Blossom. I've already started the next one. That's what that one looks like. So it's got some promise. I kind of like that I kind of like these that are like rivers that that just go off the page, but more needs to happen, like both up here and down here, and then more needs to happen in here and maybe in here. So that's the job, maybe for tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, they're all mildly fish-like. I think there's something inherently about the kind of like pointillist drawing that is vaguely calls to mind like some kind of like creature or some kind of like biological process. Yeah. So, oh, are you ever going to sign 250,000 times again? No. No. No, no, I did. I did the thing that I wanted to. I did the thing that I wanted to do with the signing, and I don't think I need to do that thing again. I also think like everybody who wants a signed book from me kind of has one now, and I don't know. I think I did it. I think I pulled it off. I mean, I might sign like some, like I don't know, like 50,000 or something, but I'm not gonna do what I did again. It wasn't fun at the end, like I hurt myself, and like the last 100,000 or so stopped being a little bit, yes, just became a little less fun. Emily says, I just read the chapter in your book on Staphylococcus aureus. I'm a med student at Aberdeen Royal Infirmary, which is where Alexander Ogston worked. How does it feel to know how far your books go? That's really cool. Yeah. So, I mean, that infirmary is where Alexander Ogston worked. It is where he tore down the sign above the operating room that said, "Prepare to meet thy God," after, with the help of Joseph Lister and lots of other people, antiseptic practices made surgery vastly less deadly. And it's a really important place in his life story, and also like the life story of our understanding of bacteria and infectious disease more generally. So that's really cool. It's so lovely to know that the book has gone to all these places, like it's hard to express how lovely it is, especially at a time when I haven't traveled, but to hear from people, like I heard from somebody who, I might have mentioned this before, who listened to the Anthropocene Reviewed on their transatlantic sailing trip before it was a book, who listened to the podcast. And, I hear from hearing from you, knowing that you're there in that place that I tried so hard to imagine when I was writing the book is really lovely. And I've seen people take copies of the book to my old high school and to the Ocala National Forest, where I saw Halley's Comet with my dad, and all these important moments in my life that I put in the book. And it means a lot to me for two reasons, I guess. First, because it's just lovely to know that the book is out there and being read and being shared. I mean, it's so, what really decides the life of a book, like reviews are great and they are really important. And like, I'm not going to lie, I'm super, super relieved that the Anthropocene Reviewed book got good reviews. And like, I mean, like good reviews from critics, but also like, I'm super relieved that it has, this incredible whatever rating on Goodreads that people are at my publisher are excited about. And I think that's great, and I'm really happy about it. But what really decides the life of a book is whether it gets shared. Like the reason The Fault in Our Stars became The Fault in Our Stars in the end, like did not have a lot to do with me. It was almost entirely readers recommending it to other readers, kids telling their parents to read it, kids telling their friends to read it, parents telling their, nieces to read it. That was the story of, and remains really the story of that book. And the reason that, I got to be the tail to that book's comet, I guess. And so it is lovely to hear that the book is going to so many places. And then it's lovely to hear when people are sharing the book with people they care about, which takes the book to new places, which gives it a new life that it otherwise couldn't have had. Yeah, that's really lovely and nice to think about, and a source of immense consolation and encouragement to me. I really loved writing the book, and I don't know if I'll write another book of nonfiction. But it's rare that, and maybe it's partly because I wrote it over 3.5 years, and I was able to get a lot of feedback along the way, both by like reading unfinished essays to y'all and on live streams, but also by releasing episodes of the podcast and everything. But usually, honestly, when I finish a book, I can only see the things that are wrong with it, and it's pretty painful to read or think about. And with this book, that really has not been the case at all. Like, it's been really, really lovely. It's just been great. It's been amazing. So what else? I don't know. I mean, it's just been incredible. And I feel like I did most of what I set out to do. I'm still not going to like reread the book or anything, because I don't want to find out about all the mistakes that I made. And I'm sure I made a ton of them, but like, yeah, it feels a lot better than it certainly any other book ever felt. Like frankly, like a month after Turtles All the Way Down came out, I felt I was nothing but stressed out about the book. And a month after The Fault in Our Stars came out, I was nothing but stressed out about the book. So it's been like 10 years since I was able to, have an experience like this where it's just really lovely. Did you watch the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest? I did watch it. And I was again struck by the fact that in all the good ways and in all the terrible ways, it is, if nothing else, a hell of a good metaphor. It seems to me like it is mostly a metaphor rather than an actual event as such. Yeah. So I don't know. Every year I'm like, wow, that is something. Do you talk to the translators when they work on books, your books in other languages? It depends on the translator, but I talk to a lot of them, and I'm always happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. I think sometimes translators like don't want authors to get in their way, and I'm sympathetic to that position, because like authors are persnickety and weird and have strong opinions often about things that aren't very important. Like one thing about authors, in my experience anyway, is that like the people who write books very often do not understand what is good in them or what is bad in them. And so if I were a translator, I'm not sure I would reach out to the writers, but I do love talking to my translators, and I'm really close. I mean, good friends with some of them. Alide, who is my Dutch translator, I've known for 15, 16 years, since before I had a YouTube channel. Same is true of my German translator, Sophie Zeitz. So I've been lucky to have these really long-term relationships in publishing, which most people don't have. Like, it's very unusual to be in the position that I'm in, where like all of my books are published by the same publisher and edited by the same person. In fact, like I don't know of anyone else who's had the same editor for like 20 years in a row. And so even though the Anthropocene Reviewed is a nonfiction book, and it's a book published for adults, both of which make it different from my previous books and like change the way that the books are marketed and sold and where they're stocked and all kinds of other boring things that don't actually matter to readers, but matter a lot inside like the little pond of publishing. Even with making that big change, I was still able to, have, it still says Dutton on the side of the book, which is the same publisher of all my other books. And it was still edited by Julie Strauss-Gable. So, for me, the internal experience of writing it was in those ways anyway, quite similar. But that's really unusual. And it's unusual, I think, probably also to have these really long-term relationships with foreign publishers. But I've been really lucky in those respects. A lot of people taking care of a lot of people caring about my work. I mean, the cool thing about it for me is that most of these people are people who cared about my work before it's sold, like, I mean, that Sophie and Alide both translated my books such that those early books were much more popular in the Netherlands and Germany than they were in the United States. So, yeah, so those are special friendships, and it's a cool thing that can come out of writing a book. I never thought, I never thought that my books would be published in multiple languages or anything like that. Like, just seemed totally impossible. But I've just been incredibly lucky. Yeah. Would you ever bring back the art assignment? Asks Amy. I loved making art assignment videos, and I could make art assignment videos very happily as my job. But I have other jobs I want to do. And I know Sarah has other stuff she wants to do. So I miss making videos about art, but I still write about art. I still think about art. I just do it in a more private way for now. And that's been really helpful for me to be able to work privately, I guess, a little bit more, and to be able to engage, to be able to like write and be okay with people not seeing it. So, do I style my hair like this? No, I just get out of the bathtub. Okay, let me answer some questions. How did you come up with the chapters of the Anthropocene Reviewed? I didn't really. Most of the so, I mean, Julie and I had this idea from the beginning, right? Like, so, I mean, just the physical act of opening the book, you see these circle drawings that are very similar to this circle drawing, because in fact, this, you can see it really on this page. This circle drawing is taken from this circle drawing. So we had this idea that, like, you open the book and there's this personal thing. This was made by my hand. It's my attempt to like reckon with the size of the shift and the size of the loss that happened in the last year and a half. It's a very personal thing. And then you have this page that I touched, which is also like quite a personal thing. And then, so that we wanted that to like set the tone for the book, in the sense that there's really two arcs that the book is trying to chart in the way that it's structured. One is a journey from childhood, watching Halley's Comet with my dad, to adulthood, being a father myself, learning from my children, just as 35 years earlier I had learned from my father. And then a second arc that takes us, just as this goes from childhood to adulthood, this goes from a kind of hope to despair, and then writing my way back toward hope, which was in a broad sense, like sort of my experience of growing up, right? Like, as a kid, I was able to, especially initially, I was able to find a lot of like comfort and hope that made even the painful parts of my childhood, and there were definitely some tough ones, feel like I could get through them. And then slowly that hope began to wear thin and seem a little flimsy or cheesy or easily won, and so easy to discard. And then I, had a pretty long period of, I guess, like in and out, not consistent, but I had a long in and out period of really, really battling despair. And then in the last part of the book, I wanted to write my way back to hope, with like the sycamore trees, and a little bit with young farmers, with the QWERTY keyboard, what we can accomplish together, and then especially with the world's largest ball of paint that we are all contributing to, and that makes it, that's precisely what makes it so beautiful and valuable. So those two arcs, like every one of my books in my mind has a shape, And I don't think the shape matters to anybody else, but like Will Grace and Will Grace is obviously shaped like an X because like two characters start out, they don't know each other, then they meet each other, their lives sort of intertwine, and then they go their separate ways. But like, you know, just as everything before the intertwining was headed toward the X, everything after the intertwining is headed away from that like intersectional moment. Yeah, so they all have like shapes in my mind that I find helpful in trying to understand like what I want the book to do and how I want it to the drive or energy I want it to have for the readers. And so this book was sort of football shaped because we wanted those two arcs to happen at the same time. So that's how, I mean, Julie did 90% of the actual picking of the chapters, but that's what we were going for. So I really want to know the shapes of your other novels now. Well, I don't know that I can remember all of them, to be honest with you. What is Looking for Alaska shaped like? What is Looking for Alaska about? What is Looking for Alaska about? What happens in that book? I don't think I can do this game because I don't remember what happens in any of these books. I think Alaska is broadly about, I mean, I haven't read the book in like 17 years, so you'll forgive me if this is completely wrong, but I think basically it's about a kid who thinks that he is doing himself and this young woman a favor by romanticizing her and idolizing her and thinking that she's so amazing. But in doing that, he fails to meet her where she is and to listen to her as who she is, and fails to take her pain seriously. And that is catastrophic. That is my memory of that book anyway. I don't know what shape I had in mind though. I do have a pretty good, yeah. So I have a pretty good sense of like what the, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure I can answer the question because I would have to like go back. Hafsa asks, can you make female protagonists actually normal? Yeah, I mean, if I did my job, I mean, certainly if I did my job, Aza is she's not normal, but you know, she's seeing herself from inside of herself, and so if I did my job, she comes across as pretty fully human, and so does Hazel because she's also seeing herself from inside of herself. But when I was writing Alaska and Paper Towns, I was writing from the perspective of teenage boys at a time in history, at least when I felt like teenage boys were very commonly romanticizing and even objectifying girls and almost treating this as if it was some sort of positive to put someone on a pedestal, to treat them as if they're more than human, that this was like almost like a way of expressing a trueness or faithfulness in their affection toward this person. And I think that's such a hugely destructive force. And so that's what I tried to write about in Alaska. And then I felt like because Alaska was also about a lot of other things that maybe people didn't totally pick up on it. And so I tried to really write about nothing except that in Paper Towns. And maybe people still didn't pick up on it, or maybe people did pick up on it, but, you know, I identified me with Quentin, which is, yeah, definitely not something I like saw happening in 2008 because I just didn't understand that how deeply the relationship between authors and fiction was changing. But yeah, I mean, for me, those books couldn't have quote unquote like normal characters in them, precisely because the female characters were being viewed by these boys with really unhealthy ways of looking at women. I tried to make it really clear in both those books that, you know, the book was aware of this problematic way of looking at it and not like approving of this problematic way of looking at it, but instead trying to call attention to what was so horrifying and dangerous about it. You know, I think in Paper Towns, he's not able to find Margot at all until he stops thinking of Margot as some like
beautiful riddle to be solved and starts to understand that Margot is just a person and that Margot's life is not about Quentin and that Margot like is doing her own thing and having her own life. And, I think he gets pretty explicit about that. And then certainly in the last chapter, she gets very, very explicit about it. Hopefully, if I did my job, which I might not have. So yeah, that's why those characters are the way they are. But the way we look at ourselves is just different from the way we look at other people. And I think, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think novels have to acknowledge that. At least novels that are written deeply inside of one perspective. So, yeah. Okay, there were some other questions. But I also think readers' relationships with those books change. I think it's probably different to read those books when you're 17 than when you're 12. And I did not imagine 12-year-olds reading those books. So it was a real, that was a surprise to me. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard for 12-year-olds to pick up on a lot of that stuff. Even if it's pretty hammered down, because they're also living inside of a social order that tells them that these ways of experiencing romance are healthy when they're really actually quite destructive. Ahmed says, "How did you quit smoking?" I chewed Nicorette for 7 years until I was chewing so much Nicorette that I was chewing the equivalent of 3 packs a day of nicotine. And then my doctor was like, "You have to quit chewing Nicorette." And I said, "Okay, I will." And I did. So yeah. You talked about the experience of fame. You're talking about the experience of fame was really interesting. Can you do that more? I don't know, man. It makes me uncomfortable because I don't want to. The thing that I most don't want is I don't want to come across as ungrateful, because I'm not. I am immensely grateful, and I like my life a lot, and I am very grateful for it. And there are certainly things that came with that kind of experience of being pretty close to the center of pop culture that were really unpleasant, beyond unpleasant, painful is, I guess, is the only word for it. And that there's a reason that I, didn't move to LA and did kind of retreat a little bit. Retreat a lot actually after the Paper Towns movie came out. But it is also true that as a result of that time, we're able to make this gift to Partners in Health. As a result of that time, honestly, if The Fault in Our Stars hadn't been commercially successful, I would not have been able to throw myself into Crash Course for 2.5 years, starting really so Crash Course debuted 3 or 4 days after The Fault in Our Stars was published. And because that book was selling well, I knew I had a little bit of time to not have to write a book, which meant I had a little bit of time to be able to focus on making Crash Course as good as I could, helping in whatever ways I could help. And so I look back at that time and I think to be honest, the famous parts of being famous suck and are really difficult and are not, and that's, and I, not everybody experiences it that way. And, but that's how I experienced it. But it also gave me a ton of freedom and opportunity and connection. During that time, I formed relationships that are still really important to me. And so I look back on it as a complex time, as I think you look back on any part of your life. But I'm really, the thing I most don't want, though, is I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful for that having happened, because I am grateful. It has allowed us to have a comfortable life. It's allowed us to, take on new kinds of work like Crash Course without having to worry about how that stuff's going to make money, which is great because it doesn't. And it's also allowed us to, do other stuff that's interesting to us and to have less pressure on me to write at a certain schedule. So a lot of things have been really good about it. And that's, if I sound conflicted, it's because I am conflicted. But I will say right now is great because I get to like do work for people who care about the work, and I don't have to do too much of the other stuff. And that's really, 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 really lovely. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Couple other things. Worm Dance says, when I was 12, my dad made me put back Looking for Alaska because it was inappropriate, so I've never read it. Well, Worm Dance, you're not 12 anymore, and I think now's the time. I think today's the day. I think it's literally like $6, Worm Dance. It's and I don't have a huge financial interest in you reading this book. I think I get 60 cents. But I still think you should read it. I hope you'll read it. I need that 60 cents, Worm Dance. Or you just get it out of the library. That way you don't have to worry about the $6. Do you still watch Nathan Zed? Every single video, start to finish. Okay, last question, then I got to go. Sorry. How's the PIH fundraising going? So well. So much better than we ever imagined. Like when Sarah and I were in Sierra Leone, we were at the very end of our trip there. Dr. Byler Berry, who I talked about earlier, and John Lasher and a couple other folks from PIH, like sat us down in, I think we were in Freetown, and like put up a bed sheet on a wall to serve as a kind of like television or projector or whatever. And then they like projected on an old school projector some slides about what the Maternal Center of Excellence might be. And, at that time it was a dream, like it was an ambition, to have better maternal care in this one region that could then make the case that it's possible to have better maternal care in every impoverished community throughout the world, and that it's not that expensive. It's certainly not that expensive per patient, and that it's doable. And, they showed us some early renderings of what the architecture might look like. In the end, actually, it looks even better than those like early imagined renderings. And then they showed us the cost on the last slide, and I like broke out into a sweat. Like I was like, oh God, like this is so important, and this is so good, and this is such an amazing opportunity for our community and for this community and for our community to feel more closely connected to this community and vice versa. And like, this is such an amazing thing, and it could do so much good, but just how the frick are we going to get $25 million? I was just like, and I even said that to them. I was like, guys, we can't, like, it's like, I don't think we can raise can't raise $25 million. Like, that's like 2.5 times what the Project for Awesome has raised in its entire history. And our like community is smaller than it was, like if you'd said this in 2014 at the like height of the Fault in Our Stars stuff, I would have been able to say like, oh yeah, but still no, because like actually during those years, like we'd do the Project for Awesome and it would raise less money than it does now or than it did before. So, because like one of the great paradoxes of online experience is that a lot of times as communities become bigger, they also become less powerful because they become less important in your life. Like, if everybody identifies as a, I don't know, 50 Shades of Grey fan or whatever, then like being a 50 Shades of Grey fan is not like a hugely important identifier in your life. It's just like what everybody is. And so anyway, that's not relevant to the story. So I was like, yeah, we want to help with this, but there's no way we can raise even half of that. And then I went home and I talked to Hank, and I was like, Hank, I need a lot of money. And talked to Catherine, and Sarah and I talked a lot about what we could do, and figured out that we could do more than we thought we could do, and we should still do more. We're still not doing nearly enough. And then I had a bunch of meetings with nerd fighters. There's some probably in this room actually, where I had like meetings with people who expressed an interest in making a large donation to a project like this. And those meetings were really helpful for me, even though most people who were in them, like in the end, weren't in a position to donate, just because it was a way of like bouncing ideas around, and also like hearing back from people on their concerns and their questions, and help me like understand, you know, both like how to talk about this. It's so important, I think, to talk about it in a way that's respectful of the people who are doing the actual work, because raising money is not the actual work, and raising money is it's important. It funds the actual work, but it isn't the work. And so I think it's important to keep the people who are doing the work at the center of it, and the people who are being served by, this hospital. But at the same time, like figuring out a way to talk to donors in a way that would resonate with them. It wasn't so inside baseball. That wasn't always talking about other metrics and projects that most people have never heard of, and so aren't relevant to their, like, doesn't make them, doesn't help them understand more deeply the problem or what the solutions to it look like. So anyway, like after all those conversations, I was like, we had another meeting with Partners in Health, and I was like, maybe we can raise like 12, 15, maybe 15. And they felt like if we could raise 12 or maybe 15, that they could maybe raise the rest, and we could maybe do it. So it felt a little bit like making that first video felt a little bit like jumping out into the unknown and having no idea what was going to happen. I mean, I thought that it was as likely that we would raise, I felt like it was as likely that we wouldn't be within 50% of our goal as it would be that we would meet our goal. And admittedly, I'm always the cautious one. Hank was like, we'll blow past it. But we did, we did meet it. And now if you assume that the current rate of donation will continue throughout the remaining, 3.5 years of the project, or the 3.5 years of the project that we've budgeted out for so far, because that's not the end of the Maternal Center of Excellence, of course. We're almost there. Like, we're past $23 million. Some of that money's come, a lot of that money has come from Partners in Health and from Partners in Health donors, but most of it has come from us, from our community. And it's incredible. It's incredible. Like, it's more money has been raised for this project than the Project for Awesome has raised in the whole time the Project for Awesome has existed. And that's been done by like about 7,000 people. Like, it's 7,000 people making monthly, ongoing, open-ended commitments to fight maternal and child mortality. And that's the difference that can be made, if you're organized and you pick the right projects. So it's really special, and it's something I'm really, really grateful for. Yeah. I will definitely be in Sierra Leone as soon as I can, as soon as I can go safely and not be a burden to the folks at PIH and to the healthcare system there. And, I think that that's still a ways off. Unfortunately, Sierra Leone is one of these places, one of the many places that's not getting anywhere near the quantities of vaccine that are necessary to bring the pandemic to an end. So, but I'm still hopeful that I'll be able to go, if not this year, at least next. Not least because I think making videos, where I talk directly to people who, who are doing this work, I think that's hugely important. It helps bring it home for you, and also like really enriches my understanding of the complex set of challenges that they're facing as they work to get the MCOE and the NICU up online. So there's definitely still a long way to go, but there are a lot of reasons to be encouraged, and I feel really really encouraged. So yeah, that's the news. I'll try and do another live stream this week. Maybe with Sarah. It'd be fun to do one with Sarah where we could talk about where we'll talk about all kinds of stuff. And but we can talk about maybe I'll read you this bad draft of an Anthropocene Reviewed episode I have, and you can tell me how to make it better. But in the meantime, thank y'all for being here with us, and thanks for spending an hour with me. It's been nice. I hope you have a lovely evening wherever you are in the world, and a safe sleep. And tomorrow we go again. All right, take care. TFTBA.